Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
I'm ready for the event.
National Baseball Hall of Fame, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Bruce Markison with the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum. How do you hear me?
I have you loud and clear. Nice to talk with you today.
Well, same here. Thank you very much, Jeanette. It's an honor to have a chance to speak with you today from the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum, located in Cooperstown, New York, less than 2 hours from your hometown of Syracuse, New York. Jeanette Epps is the Expedition 71 flight engineer aboard the International Space Station, and we will be asking Jeanette questions that we have collected from students via the museum's Black Baseball Initiative, education, and outreach programs. Now, these questions include some from students in Syracuse, New York, where Jeanette Epps grew up. So let's get right to the questions. Jeanette, our first student question is this. Have you ever been to the Baseball Hall of Fame?
Unfortunately, I have not been to the Baseball Hall of Fame yet, but I do plan to go there when I get back.
Very good. And I see that you're giving us a little bit of sampling of baseball in space there. Very nice. Before we get to our next question, Jeanette, I do want to mention this. Jeanette serves on the Board of Trustees at her alma mater, Lemoyne College, and she serves on that board along with Barbara McHugh, who is MLB's Vice President of Marketing. So there's a nice baseball connection there. Time for our next question, Jeanette, from a student. Assuming that you had the room to set up an entire baseball field in space, would you physically be able to play baseball while in outer space? Is that possible?
Most certainly, but as you can see, it would be a little different because the ball actually floats. But we can toss the ball. I would do that here, but as you can see, we have many laptops, a lot of equipment and different things. So we probably wouldn't do it in a place like this, but you can definitely play baseball in space.
That's very interesting. I wonder how it would be to swing a bat. You see the ball floating. Would you be able to swing the bat faster, slower? Would there be any effect on that?
Well, since our environment up here is similar to Earth's environment, where we have about 70% or so nitrogen and about 21% oxygen, the atmosphere is very similar. The biggest difference is that we just don't have gravity, so everything floats. But you can swing a bat as hard as you can swing it on Earth. The bat is just mass now. It doesn't have weight, but it does have mass. You can still swing a baseball bat in space. You could toss a ball, and you can even get it to spin so that you can get it to curve and spin through the Magnus effect. So as the baseball spins, it'll get a little lift, and you can arc the ball, and you can basically toss it however you like.
That's very interesting. One of our students was curious, what exactly does a baseball field look like when viewed from outer space?
Well, it's actually hard to see it. We're about 260 miles above the Earth's surface. We can see a lot of things. We have to use special cameras, though, to see things like a baseball field. We have to zoom in very far to take a look at those baseball fields, but we can see a lot of terrain features like rivers. We can see the Himalayas from here. And if we know exactly where we're going over, we can use a camera and maybe get a really good glimpse of a baseball field. I haven't done that yet myself, but that's a challenge. I'll see if I can do that on one of these passes over the next 2 months that I'm here.
Very good. We'll add that to your list of many duties that you have. Another great question. Baseball players, of course, can be very superstitious during, before, and after games as well. During your time in space, have you and your fellow astronauts ever participated in any rituals, superstitions, customs for the purpose of either bonding or trying to prevent bad luck, as baseball players might do?
Well, in space, we haven't done anything like that. But on Earth, if you're flying on the Soyuz, as you suit up and you're driving out to the launch pad, there's a couple of things that Yuri Gagarin did before he got on, went on his mission. Like, for example, he stopped and he took his last bathroom break on the tire of the vehicle and then took off. So a lot of people do that, and cosmonauts and astronauts do that, just as a good luck thing because Yuri Gagarin did it as well. So there's a few things and traditions that we still follow to this day, like going to Red Square after we finished our exams, signing a particular book in a museum as well in Moscow if you're flying on the Soyuz. In the United States, we kind of don't have similar traditions like that, but over in Russia, we had a lot of traditions if you're flying on the Soyuz.
Very interesting. Another question from a student, and all of these really have a baseball theme tied into them. So this student wanted to know, when a baseball player steps into the box for the first time, there are, of course, 1,000 feelings flowing through their body. But what about for an astronaut such as yourself? When you first blasted off into space, very first time, how were you feeling? And what was going through your mind at the time?
That is a great question. I love that a student asked that. Well, for me, I was the skeptic right up until the moment that I felt the rocket underneath me. And then the excitement is indescribable. But I will tell you that the four of us in that vehicle, we all kind of yelled a little bit as if we were on an amusement park ride. And it was exhilarating. It was an amazing ride to get here to the space station. And then once we arrived here, to see the Earth from 260 miles above the Earth's surface is just phenomenal. So, it's the same feeling probably that a baseball pitcher, as he steps up to the mound the first time and he's doing something new for the first time. It's just exciting. It's amazing. It's exhilarating. I mean, there's so many emotions that go through your brain. I was a skeptic up until that moment. It wasn't real until we took off. And, finally to get here was amazing.
And at that time, did you feel just a little bit nervous?
I was definitely nervous. I kind of think that if you're not a little nervous, you're not human. Especially when you're doing something that you've never done before. There's always a little bit of nervousness. I think that's normal for every human being, unless you're not human. And so, of course, I was very nervous, not knowing what to expect exactly, kind of familiar with what I should see and what I should feel. But even then, you just don't know how you're going to respond or react to actually lifting up off the surface of the Earth, your home, and go into a place where you're kind of untethered from that place for 6 months. So it was exciting, and of course I was nervous.
I would have been a little more than slightly nervous in that situation. Let's put it that way. Another baseball question: when a closer
Well, when you
comes,
train, you wouldn't be nervous.
that's true. That's true. Here's an interesting analogy from one of the students. When a closer comes into a game, ninth inning, he or she has to be calm, cool, collected in the face of intense pressure, especially if it's a one-run game. When you face adversity on one of your missions, how do you try to stay cool and calm and collected throughout?
Well, this is where the training comes in. For me, in order to stay cool, calm, and collected, I have to recall, okay, what am I facing? What am I doing? And try to recount and then train for that and make sure that there's nothing that I've missed. There's still things that I cannot know, but understanding what I'm getting into is half the battle for me. But also, if there's any kind of adversity that does come up, taking a step back, not being reactive, but being more proactive. And so if you're too reactionary, then, you could have missed something or you could be mistaken. So rather than being reactionary, I like to take a deep breath, take a step back, think about it, and be more proactive than just rush in to do something. And rely on the training that I've had to bring in all the experiences that I've had in my different careers before even coming to NASA, and use all of those tools that I have to move forward more prepared, more logically, and not so reactionary. And just and almost in a if you're reactionary, you can be more irrational in the end. So for me, being prepared and proactive is the best way to keep me calm and to face certain adversities.
A very good strategy. One of the great things about baseball, it's a very literary sport. Many, many great writers associated with the game. And that leads into the next student question that we have. And this student says, oftentimes after a historic career, baseball players write biographies detailing their lives, their careers in the game. Are you thinking about doing the same thing?
Well, I'm not as certain that my life is as historical as some of these guys who write these books. So I'm not sure that I'm going to write a book, but that is a good question. There's a good chance that I will, but I'm not sure what I would write about right now. So at some point, that may be a discussion that I'll have with my family, and we'll see what happens.
Jeanette, we have just a couple more questions for you. I'm curious what it was like for you growing up in the Syracuse area. Take us back to your childhood days.
Well, it was always my twin sister and my mom. So it was always the three of us when I was growing up. I have other brothers and sisters, but they were always off doing their own thing. But all of my brothers and sisters always supported Janet and me for whatever we wanted to do. My oldest brother, who was in the Army, he always sent back books. He sent back atlases and encyclopedias for us to read because he knew that, we loved to read as kids. And so growing up, we had a kind of a normal childhood in a lot of sense. Janet and I, we weren't raised by parents who were scientists or engineers, but just by people who really supported everything that we wanted to do. And that's kind of how we ended up in STEM. My twin sister did molecular cell biology, and I ended up in aerospace engineering. So we were pretty happy as kids. I worked when I was in high school. I started working, and I met many people and made a lot of friends. And then I went on to Lemoyne College. So my life is it was very normal, I would say. I was just doing things that people, I think, around me didn't think were normal for girls like me and my twin sister. So maybe that's part of the story too.
Jeanette, while you were growing up, did you have any astronaut heroes that you admired, followed their careers? Or if not astronauts, maybe people in the general science area that you admired?
Oh, there were plenty of people that I admired. Well, it's interesting because my oldest brother, he was the one who recommended that I go to school for aerospace or maybe even become an astronaut. I never dreamed that they would pick me to be an astronaut because this is the year that they selected several women to become astronauts, and that class included Sally Ride. So all of those ladies, I commended them, and I thought they were doing amazing things when I was a little girl, but I never dreamed that I'd get selected. So it was people who were doing things like that, watching Carl Sagan on public television, even growing up, and a lot of public television. These people who were in science doing major things were the people who were my heroes. And my twin sister and I, we also watched a lot of science fiction, like Doctor Who and things like that. So there were things like that that really influenced us.
Well, that's very interesting. You're a fan of Doctor Who. I know a lot of people who love that show.
I've been since I was a very little kid. I started watching Tom Baker, and that was the late 70s.
Jeanette, for any kids, any students that might be watching now or later on when this is available via recording, and they're thinking about maybe a career in the space industry, maybe not specifically doing what you're doing, but something related to it. What kinds of advice would you give them? How should they get started?
Well, it's interesting because, students ask that question all the time. And I say, just start wherever you are and start doing things and completing them and making sure that you're on track for the dream that you have. It was my dream to become an aerospace engineer. So I started at Lemoyne College, and I started in physics because they didn't have a specific aerospace program, but they did have a 3-2 program where I had to start in physics and then go over to engineering. And I just started working one day at a time, and you just keep going forward. You're going to have setbacks and things like that, but, that's what life is all about. You overcome those things and you keep moving forward. And sometimes those setbacks, when you overcome them, you feel like you really earned what you're setting out to achieve. And so, it gives you a sense of accomplishment too. But doing the work and moving forward, making a plan and not being so stuck to that plan also that you have to do those things or otherwise you're not happy. But things change and you may go on to do other things. Like I ended up at Ford Motor Company rather than an aerospace company. And then even beyond that, I ended up at the Central Intelligence Agency. I didn't think I would end up there, but I was a scientist there as well. So working your in whatever career you're doing, accepting some risk and opportunities is another aspect of that. So I would tell them to continue with their dream big, aim for it, and you never know where you'll end up. I never dreamed I would end up here on the space station talking live to the Baseball Hall of Fame, but yet here I am. And that's a consistent work over many decades. So every kid needs to know that you got to put the time in to do the work, and consistency over time, you'll get to where your big dreams are leading you to. And if you don't end up here, you'll end up somewhere far beyond than what you dreamed of if you never jumped big. So I say go for it.
Very well said. Final question. We have just under a minute to go. We just saw somebody float by you. Tell us who that is.
Well, that is the lovely Sunita Williams of the Starliner crew. I don't know if you saw her lovely hair floating through as well, but yeah, she's on board and she's working here as an Expedition 71 member even. So there's Butch and Sunny are here, part of the Starliner group, and maybe we can get Sunny to bring the baseball back. She'll toss it first. There we go. Come on over, Sunny.
Excellent. Well, congratulations on all your achievements. This has been fascinating. Thank you, Jeanette, for spending some time with the Baseball Hall of Fame today. We really appreciate it.
It was absolutely my pleasure, and this has been a great call. Hopefully when I get back, I can get out there and actually go visit the Baseball Hall of Fame. And just to say hi quickly, here's Sunita Williams.
Hi, everyone, and I have to say, go Red Sox.
That was totally unscripted, so thank you guys. Thanks for having me here.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event.
Thank you to all participants. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.